Alright, T.
Yeah.
Well, is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. So where were we? Oh yeah, the orchestra. Yeah, the orchestra. Writing for the orchestra is a great thing. That's definitely interesting, and also the machines are interesting too. And I've always wanted to study digital signal processing more. I studied it in college, and I studied with a guy named Tom Stockham, Stockham. He's one of the guys that pioneered digital recording, and he had a company called SoundStream. Anyway, he was one of the guys that was on the Nixon tape panel of experts.
Yeah.
And he was the guy that testified that they erased the tape, 6 or 7 times. They found out that they erased it like about 7 times, or maybe even more. They still tried to get it back too, but they couldn't quite do it. Anyway, he was an expert on digital signal processing, which is now the rage. This is the thing that they're using in like the acoustic modeling technology on the brand new synthesizers, and also that stuff like on the DX7, that kind of frequency modulation techniques, stuff like that. They were doing that. And that was before I played with Frank. Actually, I studied that stuff in college. It was great, and this guy was really great. In those days, they had to take 600 or 700 times real time in order to generate a trombone sound, for instance. We worked on that. This one guy, a man named Ercolino Ferretti, he was a real pioneer in that field, although I don't think he's actually ever got anything for it, but he produced my sound on the computer, and that was in 1971. He sampled my sound, and then he recreated it from scratch using sine waves, computers. It was great, but it took him a whole year to do one little tiny part, which was quite an honor for me, This guy did that. But his method and various other methods are now finally coming so that it might happen, Even the computers now are a little too weak, almost, the commercially available ones, to do his thing, in real time. However, if you had hardware specifically oriented towards it, you could certainly do it, no problem. Because those machines he was using were like about 1 million cycles per second. 1 million operations per second. These things are now, they're 66 or 200 or whatever. But it needs to be at least 600. We could do it. It's easy to do it, no doubt. Just have about 3, 4, 5 machines running in parallel. So suddenly I'm getting interested in that, but it's a big job. But it would be fun because what they're doing is kind of not quite, they're trying to make a commercially saleable synthesizer with a cheapo version of that, But really, wouldn't it be nice to have the prototype in your house so that you could program it yourself and have it generate sounds by some mathematical rules instead of just, playing the synth that everybody else has. So I'm really thinking about it. And, the companies like Motorola, they might give you some chips because they want to see people do that. They can sell chips. If somebody makes an invention, they can sell chips. I told Frank about this, when I first met him. I gave him a book about it, which he completely insulted me. Told me I was stupid for studying it. then he ends up doing it.
Yeah.
You know, that's when he said how much he hated math, how stupid math was. That was in '72.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Yes.
Well, it's actually a true story. You know, I wonder if it had something to do with his dad or whatever. But you know, Escher hated math too. There's a guy. Everything he painted is almost completely math. So it's kind of a, you know, it's. I'm sure they're both right. I'm not saying they're wrong. I think they're right, both right. But what they are is they're right within their own framework. It's just like that relativity thing we were talking about. In fact, you might even be able to say that every person is right about everything they think within their own framework. And in that case, it's pretty strange, isn't it? How can you accuse a guy of being immoral if he's only doing what he thinks is right? This way, right? I think so.
So, what was your education? What comes to your main instrument, trombone? Did you get any formal education?
Oh yeah, I studied with classical trombone teachers, and I learned how to read. And then I played in some orchestras.
In high school, in college?
Yeah, I played in junior high school and high school and elementary school. College, I played at North Texas. North Texas had killer jazz bands, you know, big bands. They were ridiculous. And I was a reading band. You know, the band could sight read. Played all kinds of music. Very strong, you know. Those guys, a lot of those guys in that band are still making big bucks. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 guys that played with Frank that came out of that band. Tom Malone and Sal Marquez and Lou Marini and me. Great band. That was college. You know, that was great training, that college band. Plus, they had a lot of serious jazz players in that college band, and they were older. You know, these guys were guys that were in the army, and then they got out and went back to school and stuff. So they could really play, and they didn't care about school that much. They just wanted to play. So we played. We had all kinds of sessions, and we played all the time. Nobody lived there. It was in Texas, middle of nowhere.
Texas. What's the name of the city?
Denton, Texas.
Denton.
Denton.
Yeah.
And that's a dry county. You know, it's illegal to have liquor there, or at least it was then. So can you imagine? You know, you can't even drink.
I can imagine that.
So we definitely played a lot. It was great. I had a great time.
So you had to learn classical music for the beginning.
Oh yeah. Well, there's either you play trombone right or you play it wrong. You know, it doesn't matter what kind of music. It's either right or wrong. And it's simple too. Within right, then quote unquote right, there's an infinite number of ways to do it right. Just depends on your own body. The main thing is to be comfortable. I think that's true of any instrument, you know, and to listen. The main thing, I think that here's the key thing on improvisation and everything. Just listen to the notes coming out of the instrument and listen to everybody's notes coming out with your conscious mind. If your conscious mind is actually on the notes, then that's when you play the best. If you're thinking about, the sound of the notes. If you're thinking about the notes on paper or anything else, like for instance, if you make a value judgment, like, wow, that sounded great. while you're thinking that, you've missed the opportunity to really play great. Because you're thinking, wow, that sounded great. Or, oh, I made a mistake. So the thing is, you've got to go on. You've got to ignore all mistakes. Completely ignore all mistakes. As soon as you can completely ignore them, then they don't exist anymore. And it's impossible to even make a mistake. You can't even make a mistake because your concentration is just on pure music. And then you know, that's the ultimate feeling. When you're done, you can't remember anything that happened. But it's great. You know, it was great.